Welcome to What Does Science Say channel. Peace be upon you. Okay, I want to ask you something. What if for the last half century we've been fighting cancer completely the wrong way? Today we're diving into a radical, but honestly kind of elegant idea that we might be able to literally starve cancer to death. Now, this isn't just some wild theory pulled out of thin air. It comes from Dr. Thomas Seyfried, a professor over at Boston College who has spent his entire career looking at the metabolism of cancer. And his big question is this: what if, instead of trying to poison cancer, we could just cut off its food supply? That is a bold, bold claim. But you know what? It's backed by a completely different way of thinking about what cancer fundamentally even is. So to really get how we might be able to starve a tumor, we first have to understand where it comes from. And on this topic, there are two very different schools of thought. For over 50 years, we've basically been told one story, that cancer is a genetic disease. The idea is that it all starts with these random mutations in our DNA that cause cells to just go rogue and multiply completely out of control. But what if that whole story is backwards? The metabolic theory, which Dr. Seyfried is a huge champion of, flips this whole idea on its head. It argues the real problem isn't our DNA, it's our cells' tiny little power plants, the mitochondria. In other words, all those genetic mutations that most treatments are designed to target, they're just a symptom, they're not the cause. According to this theory, the real disease, the thing that kicks this whole mess off, is broken mitochondria. So what in the world does broken cell machinery have to do with starving cancer? Well, it all comes down to how our cells get their fuel. A good way to think about it is like a hybrid car that can run on either clean electricity or dirty old gasoline. Our healthy cells, they use a process called respiration. It's like a super efficient electric motor that runs on oxygen and food to give us tons of clean, reliable energy. I mean, it's what powers everything you're doing right now. And get this, here's a fascinating and frankly a little chilling fact that really highlights the difference. Cyanide, the poison, it blocks that oxygen-based respiration process. So in a lab, it can kill healthy cells. But tumor cells, they can be left completely unharmed. And that's because they are not using the same engine. Instead, cancer cells are forced to use a really primitive process called fermentation. It's like a dirty, old-school gas engine that just chugs along without needing any oxygen. And because their main power plants, those mitochondria, are busted, it is the only engine they have. And this old-school engine, well, it is an incredibly picky eater. It can only run on two very specific fuels: glucose, which is just sugar, and an amino acid called glutamine. That's it. Those are the only two options on the menu. And this, right here, is cancer's fatal flaw. While our healthy cells can just easily flip a switch and start burning fat for energy, cancer cells are metabolically stuck. They simply cannot use fat or its byproducts, called ketones. And this inflexibility, well, that's their Achilles heel. You're hearing us from What Does Science Say channel. Okay, so if we know this critical weakness, how do we exploit it? The answer lies in a really elegant strategy called the press-pulse attack. Think of it like a strategic 1-2 punch. First, you continuously press down on the tumor by taking away its main fuel source, which is sugar. Then, you pulse it with a short, targeted strike against its backup fuel, glutamine. The press part comes from a therapeutic ketogenic diet. By dramatically cutting out carbohydrates, you force your body to start burning fat for fuel instead. Your healthy cells, they thrive on this clean energy source. But the cancer cells, they start to starve from the lack of glucose. Then comes the pulse. This is a drug that temporarily blocks glutamine. Now, you can't do this for very long because our really important immune cells also need glutamine. But a short, timed burst is enough to weaken the already starving tumor and let your own empowered immune system move in and finish the job. But let's take a step back. What if we could stop cancer before it even gets a chance to start? This metabolic theory completely reframes how we think about prevention. I mean, just look at the historical evidence. For example, traditional Inuit populations who ate a very high-fat, super low-carbohydrate diet, they had virtually zero cancer. But when a modern, high-carb Western diet was introduced, their cancer rates just shot up like a rocket. So what's causing all this damage to our cellular power plants in the first place? Well, it's a mix of things that are all too common in modern life. Chronic inflammation from processed foods, not moving our bodies enough, and just constant stress. Over time, these things can really injure our mitochondria. So the key takeaway here is that protecting our mitochondria is absolutely essential. The thinking goes that if our cellular power plants are healthy, if they're robust and working the way they're supposed to, then cancer just can't get a foothold to even begin. Which leaves us with this final big thought to chew on. If cancer is fundamentally a metabolic disease, one that's driven by what we eat and how we live, then doesn't it just make perfect sense that the most powerful prevention, and maybe even the cure, is also metabolic? Thank you for being with us until the end of this video. Please be sure to subscribe to the What Does Science Say channel and give us energy with your likes and comments. Share your comments with us and send the video to your loved ones so that others can also use it.